Hey everyone, this is Corine Lafont, your favorite radio host, your only radio host and favorite girl, of course, broadcasting to you from the lovely island of Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean on Between the Lines. And you know how we do it here on Between the Lines, with gratitude or thanks. I am thankful to be here, alive, vibrant, all my faculties intact. I think it's working, yes. Yes, all my faculties intact. I just had to check for a moment there. And I am glad to have with me Courtney. she's on the extreme side. I need her to shift a little bit to her right so that she can come in the middle a bit, shift to her right, or do something with the camera, whatever she needs to do so we can see that beautiful long hair she has. I don't know how she manages that. Because I don't even comb mine, so I don't know how she manages that. But anyway, we are not here to talk about hair today. We're here to talk about, are you often told you are too sensitive? Let me repeat that. Are you often told you are too sensitive? I mean, they tell people, why are you so sensitive? And some people say, you're too sensitive, like it's negative. And they come at you, you're too sensitive. Yeah, if that has happened to you in any way or form, this is the episode for you with Courtney and myself. And her full name is Courtney Marchesani.
That's right.
Okay, now if you see the spelling of her name, it might be, you might say Marchesani, or I don't know who else you would say, but it's Marchesani. Okay, it doesn't matter how you want to say it, it's Courtney Marchesani. All right, it's nice. It's a lovely
name. The CH is hard,
what sort
like
of name
Chianti.
Is that,
it's Italian, so the CH is hard, like Chianti.
Marchesani. Say it in Italian for me. How would an Italian?
It's in Italian.
Marchesani.
It's the Italians. Yep.
That's right, Marchesani. You know, anytime I hear Italian, the first thing that comes to mind, mafia.
The mafia, of course. We're not connected.
Yeah.
We're not connected.
It's good to know. That's good to know right now.
Yeah. No mafia, no Cosa Nostra, no connections.
Thank you so much for stating that. So we're going to just go with Courtney today. Okay. We're just going to go with Courtney today. And look at that. It's C and C, Courtney and Corine. She almost had my name. I almost had hers. Look at I'm looking at it.
I love your name, Corine. I love it.
Yes.
It's beautiful. Is there a special meaning? Was it a special family name?
Oh my goodness. Yes. So, have you been told that you're highly sensitive, or you're too sensitive, or you're too sensitive? I mean, I've been told that several times from all different people, from friends. I think the worst came from like my spouse at the time, when they're trying to abuse you, you know. But we're going to get there. Anyway, let me tell you about Courtney. Let me tell you about Courtney. That's right. We're going to come to it, Courtney. Don't you worry. So Courtney Marchesani first became aware of her own gifts when her intuition prevented a fire in a Seattle, brownstone. A raw gut feeling, which is called intuition, people, made her insist. She and a friend returned to the friend's apartment just in time to find a candle about to alight a bamboo shade. She's now a coach, teacher, and health advocate with a master's degree in mind-body medicine. She has spent the last 20 years passionately exploring the research gap. I don't know if there would be any sort of information for this type of thing that exists between what medical science believes and what the gifted sensitive feels. I'm telling you, this is on an energetic levels. I don't know if there's any research. She provides an enlightening ride through early to now emerging science on sensitivity and the abilities of the highly sensitive with interpretation of what this means for you today. But for me, just to interject here, more importantly, to accept who you are and to navigate, yeah, the journey of life and the people that come into your space. Courtney paints a clear picture of how to claim your specialness. Of course, you're special, you're damn special for yourself and the good of mankind. Okay, you're not just special, you're damn special. But also how to live with and adapt for your tendencies so that you can embrace them and thrive at peak quality of life. And we're going to check out her website a little bit later down. So let's get into it. So, Courtney, I'm going to ask you the question. Have you been told you're too sensitive?
Well, I identify as a sensitive person. I think that I didn't always identify as a sensitive person, but I have heard that phrase a lot in terms of my relationships with other people. And I believe it's a common experience most sensitive people have. So it's one of the phrases that we hear a lot of times, and it's looked at as a weakness. People argue that it's a weakness, it's a personality flaw or a personality trait that's not a good thing to have. Whereas in the book, I talk about the beauty of sensitivity and the positive aspect of it and why it's something to be embraced.
Why is it seen as a weakness? Why are people perpetuating or trying to change the true meaning of what it's supposed to be? Why are people doing that? They see it as a weakness. Is it because you're always supposed to be like, ta-ta, I'm strong. If you show any sign of, even Superman had his weakness. Okay, it was kryptonite.
Well, it depends, right? It depends.
If you want to see it as a weakness,
it depends on the culture. So in the American culture, where the qualities that are revered are independence and toughness and innovation, and so I do believe that it is a cultural stigma more in the United States than it might be in other places. For example, like in Japan, sensitivity is looked as a really positive attribute, and it is looked at as a gift. And in other cultures, even in South America, sensitivity is welcomed and looked at as being connected to the flow of life and the joy of life and the jovialness and to one another. And it's seen differently. So I'm coming from a perspective which was my own perspective. I grew up in the United States, and sensitivity is oftentimes looked down upon. That's been my experience in the people that I work with as well.
You said something there that's significant. Yes, it is cultural, and it is based on how they perceive you and the roles that they may want to put you in. So they wouldn't consider a highly sensitive person like ourselves and others out there for leadership, because you have to make very brutal decisions sometimes, life and death. And they might think, okay, you might be wimpy. You might want to do certain things that might sacrifice life, because for us, we might want to do everything possible not to lose a life. So the strategies, if I were in that position, the strategy would have to include, we'll have to look at all the possibilities that can save as many lives as possible, not to sacrifice lives, sacrifice some for some others to survive. For me, as a highly sensitive person, it would be try and save all the lives, or not to have a life lost.
I believe that I do believe
how do you
that sensitivity is I do believe that sensitivity can be life-saving. I wrote about it briefly in the introduction to the book about how my friend and I prevented a fire by going back to her place. And she was arguing with me the whole time as we were driving not to return to her apartment. And I was pushing forward saying, no, we need to go back. And I didn't have any evidence of why we needed to go back, but it was sensitivity. I looked at years later and identified the intuition, the gut feeling, the nagging, we need to go back, despite having any evidence. And when we got back, there was smoke throughout the whole building. So sensitivity is life-saving. It can save your own life. It can help other people. So it's definitely a survival mechanism in evolutionarily. So one in 5 people around the globe, cross-culturally, are sensitive. 1 in 4, 1 in 5.
Yeah. You said as life-saving, and it is, because that is actually what I call the barometer of my life. If we actually align and connect strongly with that intuition, everybody knows. It's that thing that says, I told you so. It's that thing that says, I knew it, I sensed it, I saw it. You come back to it after you have done the wrong, after you went against the intuition. It comes back and you say, I saw it. I saw that thing. I knew that was going to happen. So if that is a thing that has been guiding you in the right direction, that you feel it's not loud. Sometimes it's a soft, it's just a feeling. It doesn't talk necessarily, but it will scream at you. If it finds that that you're ignoring, it will start to scream.
You can be. Yeah, you can be. It's those experiences that help you learn how it works for you, because everyone's different. So you might hear an internal voice like I did. Some people hear voices externally as guidance that sounds like theirs, but maybe has more wisdom. Some people feel sensations in their body, tactile. Other individuals will see like little flashes in front of their, their eyes. I call that the mental field. And so it depends. It depends on how your gifts of sensitivity work for you. But that's what I've been doing for the last 20 years, is doing all that research on how sensitivity works and how the gifted sensitive feels.
So here's the thing, Courtney. How do we get more persons to be more attuned with that and to follow it? Because you said it could save a life. It could save your life. It is something of strength, as a matter of fact, and not a weakness. A lot of people ignore it because I guess they think they could do better. They're smarter. The brain is up here. And so they rationalize it. They talk it out. But we want people to attune themselves with who they are, and that intuition, that gut feeling, that instinct, that barometer, whatever, divine, whatever it is people want to call it. How can they attune more to it that will help them to become a stronger individual, more convicted? Because here's what, before you say, you were determined to push your friend, and I don't mean push physically, but you were determined to ignore what your friends were saying when you said, no, we need to go back to your house. No matter what she said to you, you were determined. You could have been influenced by her and say, you're right, let's whatever. What made you decide to ignore her and yank her along?
It didn't go away. See, that was the delineating factor. When I picked her and her boys up, Raja and Kyrie, they were young. She was on the edge of the bench seat of my truck, and I was in the driver's seat, and Raja and Kyrie were in the middle. Right? We were like sardines, in a can, and we're all just in there driving because we're going to go over to my other friend's apartment and take down her bed. We were moving her bed out because they were going to move in together and then move to New York. And so when I picked the boys and Rebecca up, I felt immediately like I heard the voice, don't move the bed. I actually literally heard those words, don't move the bed. So it was very clear the way the perception of it came in. And then, we had to drive all the way across town from Seattle. So it was a very long drive, and I just kept feeling it. And so I knew that something was wrong. I didn't exactly know what. I didn't have any proof, like I said. But as I got to our other friend's apartment and we took the bed apart, I had it all apart, had all the pieces organized, to put it in the back of the truck. I had this strong visceral sense that we needed to leave right then. I mean, it was like blaring at me. that my whole body, my mind, and my emotions were all kind of locked up in this feeling, almost like a compulsive feeling to return to the apartment and don't stop, just go like a bat out of hell.
Yeah.
So I just dropped
Yeah.
all the, the hardware. I dropped the bed and I said, we need to leave right now. We need to leave right now. And it was an instinct. And so Rebecca and Raja and Kyrie got back in the truck and she looked at me and she said, now you're starting to scare me. And I said, well, I don't mean to scare you, but I really think we need to go back. I don't know why, but I feel like we need to leave right now. And so we did. And by the time we got back, I went up with her and the boys to the second floor. That's where her studio apartment was. And she was fishing through her purse, trying to find her keys, but there was a sweet smoke. It was like cherry or burnt smoke all through the hallway, a light type of smoke. Finally, she gets the keys. We all go into the door and I see that there was a 3-wick candle burning on the windowsill and there was a river of wax all over the floor. It ran into about a ½ inch. And so I was like, oh my God, we made it back in time. I went into the kitchen of the studio apartment to kind of clear my senses because I didn't know what was going on or what that meant. I was very much like in sensory confusion as to how that all happened. And then the boys were in the living room and they started literally almost screaming. And the brownstone, the 3-story brownstone was really kind of small. So I was like, shh, quiet. We're here. We made it. Everything is fine. And Rebecca said, no, Courtney, come and look. And the boys are pointing to the bamboo light shade and it was black. It was a big black singe mark and it was smoking. There was smoke coming off of it, rolling off of it.
Wow.
So it was just about ready to fire, to ignite. And so we literally made it there in the nick of time. And I think that it was that blaring full body sensation that said, you need to leave now is what caused me to, there's no other way to explain it. When I look back at it, I just trusted that
What did your friend
feeling.
What did your friend say to you when she realized
She was
that
white. Her face was white.
you
She
went
was
back to the
already
house and
very
she saw it?
pale. She was already very pale, but her face was ashen white and her lips were blue. And she just looked at me and I looked at her. And she said, I think that you saved our apartment. I think you saved some lives. And I was like, I need to go home. So I went home right away to try to like decompress what it meant and try to think through it.
It's a bit much.
But that's when it changed me. That experience changed me. And I thought, I'm going to figure out what this is. And it changed me.
Yeah.
It changed the type of person I was that didn't believe in things like that ever happening. And it did. And it was proof. It was irrefutable proof that you could intuitively tap into something unknown and make a correct prediction. I just didn't have that conscious awareness of what it was, of what was guiding me back.
How has that impacted your relationships with
Oh,
people?
it definitely affected.
Being highly sensitive.
Yes, it definitely affected
things,
all my
especially toxic.
Yeah.
Yes, toxic people. I mean, personal, intimate relationships, work relationships, family. You start picking up things. How do you navigate? Because, I mean, this is what we have to deal with every day. Navigating the people. It's not the trees, it's not the animals, it's not the walls, it's the people. How, as a highly sensitive person, do we navigate those relationships?
It's totally navigation. I love the word that you used. It's a navigation, and it is a sorting and sifting process of people who are safe. That's my number one piece of advice for sensitives, is to find the safe people. And for whatever reason, sensitives have like a radar where they find one another and they kind of collect together and they develop a small community together. And so don't give up, trying to find the people that are in tune with you and non-judgmental and accepting and open-minded and willing to explore what sensitivity is. Because once you find people who are sensitives, they want to talk about it. They want to connect with you. They want to have dialogues. For people who are not sensitive, you can still be very open and warm. It depends on that person's level of their own connection and how they want to connect to you. Now, I will say that I've had some really great teachers. And I had one teacher tell me one time, she said, Courtney, people are going to have a hard time being around you, and you should not take that personally. And I didn't exactly know what she meant at the time. She was a great teacher. She was an FBI profiler, and she used to train me and give me exercises. I put some of it into the book. But she used to say, don't take it personally that people can't be around you, but because they sense when they're near to you that you're so highly aware, which sensitive people are very highly aware, they have their own fears, right? They have their own fears that you'll see into their life, or that you're divining some kind of information that they want to keep secret. And so when that happens, it's them, not you. And so that helped me out a lot to learn that it wasn't my personality that people didn't like. It was that fear that I might be picking up on stuff. So that's a little known fact sometimes, and it can be happening unconsciously. So don't take things personally. And that's a hard thing for sensitives, because they really want to belong. They really want to have deep connections. And so when they find themselves isolating, it's painful for them when they don't have their community.
I can so relate to that, Courtney. I know I would walk into a room and I can sense everything that's going into the room, and I have to be careful where I go, who I interact with, because I know how it can impact me negatively. And I want to comment as I talk about the negative part with dealing with narcissism. You know, narcissists, I'm sure you're familiar with the term, love people like us. And we people say that we tend to attract them, or because we're on different sides of the spectrum. It's like two extremes of the spectrum. What are your thoughts in terms of that, and how do we navigate that extreme sort of toxicity with a narcissist?
I talk about this in the book as well, that when we're young, sometimes empaths come about sometimes because of narcissism. I mean, it's a little known and developed part of psychology, but books are now starting to come out and explore why empaths are as deeply as empathic as they are. They might have had a parent who was a narcissist, and so they became the deep feeler in the emotional realm of that relationship in order to combat a lack of empathy. So that's one hypothesis. There's also the other hypothesis that the empath develops psychologically and emotionally because they have a parent who is unavailable. So they don't attach emotionally to a parent. And that could be because of sickness. It could be because of narcissism. It could be because of alcoholism or drug abuse, where the parent is not emotionally available. And so when it comes to narcissism, it's typically because the empath is trying to balance it out intrapsychically between the adult and the child. Now, what ends up happening, if that's the case, and it does happen in early childhood, is the empath must become highly aware. And they usually do become highly aware because it's a cyclical pattern that they find narcissists and get in a relationship with them. And it's damaging. It's very damaging, because the reason why is narcissists have a tendency to negate a sensitive empath, specifically, to negate their internal reality. And so when an empath feels so deeply and is so in tune with the environment, including a narcissist or any other person, the empath feels, thoughts, emotions, physical sensations in their own mind and body and spirit as well. And so when they talk or express what they're feeling, the really toxic part of that relationship is the narcissist says, you don't feel that way. You don't feel that way. That's not how you really feel. And so it's a negation of the empath's deep, authentic internal reality and their emotions and their feelings and their drive. And they're trying to balance it out with a narcissist, and it's not possible. So it becomes this really neurotic mess of drama and toxicity all the time between the relationship, because the empath is trying to balance out the emotional lack. And so it's important for empaths to realize we have that tendency. It's also important to do your own work and find out why that tendency is there. Maybe it's a parent, or maybe it's a sibling, or maybe it's not. But once you figure out that you're drawn to narcissists, you can break the pattern. It takes a lot of work, but anybody who's ever been in a relationship, an empath that's been in a relationship, a marriage, a relationship with a narcissist, tells you how difficult and how painful it is to get out of that and extricate yourself. And you're right, it's all energetic. So the energy, once it's broken and come back to the empaths see their whole world light up because they're not investing as much emotional energy or exhaustion into relationship with a narcissist. They can bring it back into themselves and use it for their own purposes and for their own self-healing. That's how I perceive it.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Because I'm quite familiar with dealing with these extreme persons, narcissists. It's not pretty. Let's just keep it like that. It's not pretty. It's not a nice experience. But you do learn about yourself. The thing with that is that you come out stronger and you do learn more about yourself in having whatever interactions with them. And for those of us who were able to come out of it, I'm happy. Those who are still in it, I hope you are able to navigate and you're watching this. And please make contact with Courtney. I'm sure she'll be able to share tips with you from her book and from my experience to, as an empath, to be able to maneuver and to get yourself out, because hanging around that is very draining. And that's exactly what they want, to drain you of everything, just suck the life out of you.
It's the worst.
But you mentioned something.
It's the worst. It's the worst kind of experience when an empath is told that they don't feel that way. Because an empath feels so deeply and they're already trying to second guess their own feelings of how everything's coming in, because empathy is hard to gauge, but they feel everything so much more intensely than other people. Remember, 1 in 5, 1 in 4, 1 in 5. And for the gifted empath to be told they don't feel the way they feel and to have that negated in that way is an assault.
Yeah.
It's a full frontal assault on your own self-worth. And so the point is you have to extricate yourself from it and then reclaim yourself, reclaim your energy. And then you start to see how your empathy is really powerful.
Yeah. That's right. You mentioned something before about research. I think I mentioned it in your bio. And I'm wondering, how could you do research on something that is so dynamic that it's not something that you can touch, put in a test tube, in a lab and test it out? How would you manage to collect research on something like this?
Well, we can study thoughts and emotions now. We didn't used to be able to, especially like in neuropsychology in the beginning with the testing, but they can now with functional magnetic resonance imagery and looking at different areas of the brain and how they work in concert and how they light up. I mean, they're able to go to the finest strand now with neuropsychology and neurodiagnostics. So a lot of what I wrote about in the book were those studies that I looked at over the last 20 years that show that sensitives have more ability for facial recognition, that they have a bigger response pattern in the brain when they perceive emotions on pictures and other types of images. And so you can study thoughts and emotions now like we never could before. So there is some there's all kinds of new research that's happening all the time, but I talk about things like mirror neurons in terms of empathy, and how empaths might have a larger mirror neuron system, and that those who don't, like narcissists, you can study that. I put that in the book. And so if you're an empath, one of the ways to test this is to yawn. If you yawn in a community, everybody knows that yawning typically starts to happen. So that's the mirror neuron system working. They found mirror neurons in multiple neurological systems in the brain, including the somatosensory cortex, which is where all the sensations from the body come into the brain. It's like a little sensory brain. And so it's like the Library of Congress of sensory feedback. So the technology is there. The technology is even advancing more and more. So you have to know where to look, and you have to keep working, and you have to limit your own biases and look at as much as you can, and then also collaborate with other people who are trying to work in the same field. So you're not just in your own silo, you're sharing with other individuals who are looking at different stuff.
I see here you have a sensitive test for persons who are sensitive. I want to just, let me move across to the website so I can, move the page. So click here to learn your gifts of sensitivity. That's right. Is this something you recommend?
That's where you click to go in. Yeah, it is a bit labor intensive. There's 40 questions.
I'm
and you go
clicking
through
it.
the questions, and then I get,
I'm not going to do the test at
yeah,
once with
you can do the
everybody,
test
but
if you want right now. That's totally fine. I'll take you through it.
no, I don't want everybody to know. No, I don't want everybody
You
to
don't want to front load the questions. That's cool too. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want everybody to know. Okay. So here we are with your book, For Gifts of the Highly Sensitive. Embrace the science of sensitivity, heal anxiety and relationships, and connect deeply with your world. Yes. And you can see the spelling of her name, Marchesani, right? So buy it on Amazon, get a copy of her book, get to know
I tell
her.
people to go
Her
to
hair is
Inspired
much
Potentials
shorter
because
here than it is right now.
Inspired Potentials is easier to say than my name or to spell it.
That's all right. Courtney can work. Courtney can work. So here is Courtney. Let me come back to you. Oh, that shifted there a while ago. What did I
It goes when you
do?
go off the
Oh,
web page. It
what
asks,
did
"Do
I?
you want to learn your gifts? Do you want to take the test?" It's a reminder before you go, before you disengage with the site. Because I think once you get to the
Oh,
bottom of the page, you're going to leave. So it's a reminder to take the test.
see, I have my painting. Oh my gosh, you're taking me back.
Just go up
I
and click on
paint.
the little. Go up and
See,
click on that little X in the corner. There you
yeah,
go.
but I love this with the brushes. You're taking me back in my art, and I love painting and drawing. And I say I need to get back. So I'm seeing all the little paste of paints here and brushes. That's
Yeah, because
awesome. So
I talk about expressive art therapy, how that's one of the ways to heal through sensitivity and specifically trauma.
nice.
Specifically trauma. I talk a lot about trauma and how trauma affects sensitive people a lot more deeply and longer, and it's very
Deeply. It
disruptive. It's
does.
very disruptive for us, and we have a hard time
It
healing from
is. It
traumatic
is.
experiences.
So how can persons contact
That's
you?
right.
I'm seeing you have a contact us
Contact.
page here. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Click on
There I am.
put in your information and click contact Courtney. Nice. And do you have anything here that's free that people can probably read up in the
There's so
meantime so
much
that they could
stuff on
get
the
to build?
website. It's like a little educational thing on the website. You can click around. I talk about sensitivity. I talk about high sensitivity. I talk about healing modalities that help. I have a blog where I talk about all kinds of things. I mean, it's just, it's a
And she has a
resource. It's a
podcast too.
resource.
You see, she has a podcast too. Come on, people. You see, as I saw this plant medicine, I could tell you that my body has changed in terms of what it consumes. Over the last how much years I can't remember. I just stopped eating meat. My body just started rejecting meat. And I just started to remove it. Milk and chocolate and nuts and certain things I just don't. Medicines and me don't agree. I mean, like traditional Western medicine, like antibiotics and all those drugs, don't agree with me.
Oftentimes,
There are things
they don't.
I can't still.
That's what
Yeah,
the
I
coaching,
can't,
that's
and
kind of what the coaching
it
helps
makes
with
me
when
more
I do the
sick than
coaching, because
well.
people are oftentimes going through big shifts, especially nutritionally. And, it's everybody's different, but I've had sensitive people who are extremely sensitive that couldn't eat fish. They couldn't eat meat because of the animal and the animal consciousness, and it was an ethical thing. So it's so important to pay attention to
Yeah.
those things inside of your body that are warning you.
Mm, yeah. It's awesome how much you could learn about yourself, if you just pay attention and just connect with who you really are meant to
Yes,
be, and not just try to
absolutely.
put yourself into what other people want you to be. Just be who you're meant to
That's
be,
absolutely right. And I think that
and
that's the
don't try
problem.
to snuff
I
it
think
in.
that's the problem with
Yeah.
how when we're young, we are shamed to some degree. It's how you started the podcast, where it's like you're too sensitive, or you're crying too much, or you're too emotional. And I think that to some degree we conform. Sensitives conform to what we believe is needed in the situation, and we become that, but we might not necessarily know who we are if we're always conforming and adapting, because we're highly adaptive. It's part of what they call the biological sensitivity survival strategy. I mean, major long label, but what it means is evolutionarily sensitive people were designed this way, We were born this
Yeah.
way in order to help our communities to adapt. And so, as you've seen, we just went through this huge pandemic, and you become, some part of the research shows that you become more sensitive when you isolate. So we just went through a global collective trauma. And so people are all having to isolate. We're more and more sensitive than we ever have been. Now, what that means for the younger generations, I'm not sure. But I can tell you, they will be more sensitive. The mothers that are having the children now, they will be more sensitive. And so we have to become more accepting for the younger generations and let them be who they are, so they don't have to have this coping mechanism or a defensive mechanism where they always constantly have to adapt to not be who they are. That's a very important piece that I'm glad you brought up.
That's right. It's important to just be you, so that you are able to know what you're meant to be, become a better version of yourself, and to know who you need to surround yourself with. Courtney, we could talk about this all day. I mean, this is a topic, this is something that I'm passionate about, because we're in the same circle. I want to tell you thanks so much for being on Between the Lines, for sharing, for bringing a sort of historical and how shall I say, educational part of it, with the background, with the research as part of it. Because I'm just living the life.
Yeah.
I'm living and I'm finding out about me every day. I'm just living the life.
And you will. And it'll continue to unfold in exciting ways. Like, one of the things that I love about the intuitives and the intuitive group of gifted sensitives is they're so intuitive. They have more synergistic events happen, like synchronicities, and then they pay attention to them, and then they follow them. And so if you have, empath and intuitive together, which you might be, pay attention to those things, because they'll lead you down to some exciting adventures in your life that you might not have paid attention to before. And that's what sensitivity does. It leads you down amazing paths in life, into incredible people, incredible relationships, people that you vibe with. Like you said, it's energy. So you can tell if you vibe with them or not. And it's about paying attention and tuning in and then going for it. Trust yourself, have confidence. Go for it.
Alice in Wonderland. Down the rabbit hole, Courtney. Down the rabbit hole.
That's right.
Down the rabbit hole. Let's see what happens. Down the rabbit hole.
That's what it's all about.
Thank you so much, Courtney, for being on Between the Lines. It's been a pleasure having you. All the best with your work. Try helping the world. I am doing the same by having you and people like you on my show. And like I always say, if I can just impact one person, that would mean the world to me. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. It was